Okay, welcome everybody. This is a very impromptu meeting we have here. We want you to join in today. I'm Tommy Waller, and these are my dear friends from Har Bracha. And if you don't know where Har Bracha is, it is the biblical Mount of Blessing or the biblical Mt Gerizim. It's a beautiful mountain where that's growing with many Jewish families coming to it, and there's an issue that we want to talk about today. I want to introduce you to Yonatan Behar, who's a representative of Har Bracha, and my friend Chaim Margolis, who is the city manager of Har Bracha, the Mount of Blessing. He's been called of God to lead the Israelites back to the mountain of Israel. And both of these men are dear friends, longtime friends of mine. And so there's a lot of issues here. Obviously, Hayuvel is there, Rabbi Melamed. We have to mention Rabbi Melamed real quickly because Rabbi Melamed's vision is to bring the nations to Israel, because this is the last part of the narrative of the story of the redemption, is that Jerusalem will have the house of prayer for all nations. And Rabbi Melamed believes very strongly that the nations are going to turn themselves around and find out the real definition of peace. And as we see it in our Bibles, and I really have benefited from that because Hayuvel is actually going there and bringing many volunteers. And these two men here are very key in welcoming them and teaching them about what this story is all about and why it's so important for us for the Jewish people to return to the mountains of Israel. This is a place, really, Yonatan, from your place, from your house, you could have heard God speak to Abraham, right? I mean, he spoke to Abraham right in your neighborhood, Chaim, right in your neighborhood. You could go out on your porch and hear God say, "This is the land I'm going to give your descendants," right?
I heard it. What do you say? I could have.
Yeah, you did. You heard it. I know, and I've heard it because we've heard it. God is still speaking it. He didn't just say, "Oh, rats, we made a mistake," right? No, God is clearly still very good on His promises. So maybe Yonatan, maybe what you want to just start. I know, Chaim, you had a meeting yesterday with some things, and maybe I don't know how much detail you want to go into that, but maybe some of your concerns. But Yonatan, what do you give us a little backdrop to what we're facing here, what the situation is, and why should it be important to the evangelical community, and what can we do to help, or what can we do to make this thing, this situation better? Because we're not understanding in the evangelical community, because what we're hearing is the deal of the century. We're hearing that there's going to be sovereignty over these communities and in the land of in Judea and Samaria. What have you been hoping for, been fighting for so long, and why are you now seemingly? It seems like you guys are standing against this. What's up? What's happening here?
Okay. Well, first, shalom from Har Bracha, from the Mount of Blessing, Mt Gerizim, historical, biblical, geographical, very important point in the map of Israel, right in the center of the present state of Israel. And I would first like to start off by saying that everybody has to realize that there is no greater miracle in the past, in the present, maybe in the future, than God bringing the Jewish nation, after being in exile for 2,000 years, scattered through four corners of the earth. God is bringing back the Jewish nation to the land of Israel, just as He promised in His Torah, in the Bible, and just as He promised through His prophets. We're seeing the prophecy come alive right in front of our eyes today. We're living the prophecy, and it's just from being in exile and being downtrodden and being murdered and slaughtered and raped and imprisoned and you name it, the Jewish nation has once again arisen from the dry bones, as the prophet said, and come together, and we're building the land of Israel. We are returning to the land of Israel. We're building our houses. We're building our families. The birth rate is up. The economy, other than the coronavirus, of course, is up, doing pretty good. All these things are tremendous miracles. And I think anybody who has eyes in his head can see it and can realize it. And I think what I would like my message to the evangelical world and also to all human beings who are good people, who like good and dislike people bad, to open your eyes, see the miracle, and support Israel. Support the miracle that God is performing before our eyes. Be a supporter of Israel. Be a lover of Israel. Come and visit Israel. Do whatever you can. Speak to your representatives. We are in a very, very difficult situation right now. There's a war going on here in Israel. You probably don't hear too much about it in the media, but it's a silent war. There's a land grab going on now here in the land of Israel. The Arabs are trying to, as much as possible, before the deal of the century is completed. And on the other hand, we, the Jewish nation, are trying to build as fast as possible and to expand as far as possible so that, God forbid, when this deal of the century of President Trump does go through, we will be in a better situation than we are today, and that we will be because he's also attaching to the 30% sovereignty, recognizing 30% of Judea and Samaria as being sovereign part of the land of Israel, the state of Israel, a PLO, a Palestinian state on the rest of the territory, and a 4-year building freeze, which we can never agree to. In my eyes right now, the building freeze is even more important than the Palestinian state, because we are commanded by God to build the land of Israel. That is one of the most major and important commandments that God gave the Jewish nation, is to build the land of Israel. As I tell you, Tommy, as I told you a million times, and all the people, all the great people who come from Yovel every year to help out vineyards, and I come to speak and I say that our holy rabbis, our holy and wise rabbis taught us that there are 613 commandments in the Torah. And if you were to put 612 on one side of the scale and one mitzvah on the other side of the scales would be even. And that one commandment is settling the land of Israel. So it's that important. It's a mind-blowing concept if you think about it, that the commandment, that one commandment is equal to all the other ones, to eat kosher, to keep the Shabbat, you name it, Yom Kippur, all of the holidays and everything.
You'll have to explain kosher to our Christian audience, so we'll understand what that.
It's a Jewish dietary.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, got it. Chaim,
yeah, okay, go ahead.
I want to move here just, and we'll come back and we're going to continue the conversation. But Chaim, Yonatan's saying that, the building freeze obviously is big, but you felt like, you told me yesterday, you felt like that the U.S. government was trying to push a Palestinian state. And that was maybe the main objective in all of this, was to create a Palestinian state. Now, I want to tell you that most of the Christians that are listening to this don't support a Palestinian state. What was your feeling yesterday? What do you think is happening? And just be straight with us, because I think we just need to know where you're coming from as a resident of Har Brakah. What are you afraid of? Why is this concerning to you? And why should we be alarmed by this? Or, so help us.
So all about a Palestinian state and why it's such a bad thing, Jonathan will be able to explain. But I just want to tell you that I saw the maps yesterday, and those were the good maps that would be hard to run ahead with. But because we're talking about only 30% of the area, and the other 70%, including areas that are in Area C by the Oslo deal, are just like given away to the Fatah, the PLO, and to Hamas. And we don't know how long the Fatah will be around either. But Jonathan will talk about that later. So I'm saying even what we would call, or so-called, the good maps of only 30%. I mean, I saw the maps yesterday, and it really gave me a bad feeling. I was actually I was there with someone else, and he said, "Okay, this is now time. It's time to puke." After we came out, because it really gave us such a bad. This is our land. This is a Jewish land. We believe in the Bible, and it was just given away. We're not even talking about the other 70%. Right now, what we're fighting about, and Jonathan was talking about a freeze with this plan. I got a secret. The freeze started the day Trump started talking about the deal of the century. We haven't been able to start rezoning. As you see the plans right here behind me, right here. These buildings are planned out. We're all ready to run ahead, but we have a red light from the White House. If it's your president, Donald Trump, and Jared Kushner won't allow us to zone, and even Trump was talking about allowing to build build floors, and these are buildings with 7 floors, but we're not allowed to zone. So zoning is frozen already, and it has been frozen since the president showed the plan. And the new maps, the American maps there's nothing good I have to say about them. They're really terrible. We're not even in the sovereignty areas. We're an enclave in Har Bracha isn't in the maps. There's going to be no sovereignty on this holy mountain of Har Gerizim, where Joshua came into the Holy Land and had the whole Ma'amad, Abacha, V'Aklala. Tommy, you could, and Jonathan could talk about it. But this holy spot is outside of the maps, outside of all the maps. And what we're asking is, if you're splitting the Holy Land into pieces and giving it away to Hamas and to ISIS, or so-called Arabs that could and would take over this area if Israel wouldn't be here, so at least give us, I mean, you're not even giving us an option to grow. You're not even giving us an option to have the community grow in a regular, kind of way, because we're building, and in order for a healthy community to live on. So the old people need their old age homes, and the young kids need their schools. But if you won't allow us to zone and won't allow us to build our plans, so we're totally choked. There's nothing we could do. This is like zmKUcTsVj8I, like the Gaza Strip. That this is a big step in that way of kicking us out of the Holy Land, out of the holy mountain of Har Bracha. That's here in Har Bracha, but this is all about all Judea and Samaria, and the maps are terrible. It's heartbreaking to see 70% of the land given away to Arabs that came from all around the world, but didn't get this land. This isn't their land. And I just want to say one more sentence, and that is that within the 30% that the Americans are willing to allow us to get, they include the roads. Which means instead of building housing, I'm going to need to give 5%, 10% of the maps are going to be only roads. So we're not even at 30%. We're down to 20, 25%. All the rest are roads. What are we going to do with roads? So even that was brought up, and they said no. The Trump administration said no. The roads are included in the 30%. You can't cut them out. So we're really stuck. We're really stuck. We feel like we're on the way to be just like the Gaza Strip that was kicked out, unless Trump, thank God, with the evangelical vote and with the help of God, will understand that the step he's taking of giving away the Holy Land is a terrible, terrible step, and definitely the way he's doing it. Definitely with these maps that meanwhile they're sticking to.
Do you think the president knows what he's doing, or I mean, I think there's a lot of Trump supporters here on the, they'll be hearing this or listening to it now or later. I don't know who wants to answer this, but if do you think that because it seems like to the evangelical community, especially that Trump has been good to Israel, and then so now you're saying something seems that that this is not good. What do you think? How do you think that, one, is he trying to do good and we need to change his mind about certain things, need to help him as responsible voters and responsible citizens of the US? What's your thoughts on that?
I think President Trump was misguided. I think President Trump does support Israel, and he's probably the best president as support to Israel is concerned that we've ever seen, for sure, in the last 30 years. But like I said, I think he's been misguided, and he doesn't realize that Arabs constantly protest against him, hang effigies of him, burn pictures of him. Vice President Pence, Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, they just despise them. Whereas we, the Israelis, we love America. We're in a bond with America because we have the same values and we have the same mindset. And it's unfortunate that some of his advisors, such as, unfortunately, Jared Kushner and Ambassador Friedman, have agreed to giving the Palestinians who hate them 70% of Judea and Samaria, the heart of the land of Israel. And not only that, but they're making things even more difficult now. They're putting on more restrictions on us now. And I just think that the evangelicals who really love the Bible, love God, love the land of Israel, the Holy Land, they have to make their voices heard and tell the president that he should just rescind that part of the deal of the century. He's done it before with Kim negotiations. He's done it before. He's a deal maker. He knows when he's getting a bad deal. This is a very raw, bad deal for the Jewish nation, for Israel, but also for America. Because you have to realize we are God-fearing, God-believing Jews who believe the word of God. And when God said, I will bless those who bless you, and the opposite, we take that seriously. And unfortunately, if they continue to light up the Holy Land of Israel and give a big chunk of it to, people who are totally against them and who do not deserve to have a state, not in the land of Israel. Now, if you ask what the solution is, right, that's what's the alternative? That's what everybody says. Well, I think the Torah has an alternative. And according to Jewish law, there is a concept of ger toshav. A ger toshav is a resident, not a permanent resident, but a temporary in the land of Israel, as long as it accepts Israel's sovereignty over the land and follows the 7 Noahide commandments, which are very basic human commandments that the majority of normal people do in their lives, and they live here peacefully with us, then they can live a tremendous life. They can
Well, one of those commandments is thou shalt not murder, right? So
Thou shalt not murder, that no idol worship,
idol worship, right?
and illicit sexual things and so forth. But they can join in the tremendous blessing that God is showering upon us here in the land of Israel. The land of Israel is the land of milk and honey, and it's flowing. And they can live here in peace with us. They can prosper, but they can't pick up Molotov cocktails. They can't pick up guns. They can't pick up rides and try and murder us all the time, which unfortunately is.
Let me ask both of you a question. In the last 150 years, has there been a day? Has there been one day when just one day out of our last 150 years that the Arabs have shown that they could be, that they could be good neighbors and good citizens, right next? They could be Canadians. I think.
I have a gray beard, but I can tell you for the last 35 years or 40 years that I've been here in the land of Israel that I haven't seen one day without any any incident, any terrorist attack here in Israel, whether it be small or large. And small is terrible. Taking the life of even one person is unheard of.
Chaim
and it happens on a daily basis.
Yeah, and so on that note, because what we hear when we talk to even to the side and off the record, we hear it all the time. We're dealing with the Palestinians. What are you worried about? What are you worried about? We're dealing with the Palestinians. Why would we get up in arms when we know the Palestinians? I see it all the time. There'll be somebody here writing a comment, or this will be a comment later. Well, we know that the Palestinians are not going to accept the deal. So what are we worried about? Why would we be worried about that? And I'd like to hear Chaim, just for you to get your 2 cents in there, and then maybe Jonathan just expound on that. But what do you think about that, and why are we worried about what the Palestinians about a Palestinian state, and how can there be a Palestinian state without agreement on the borders? Is there any worry about that, or is there a possibility that there would be a Palestinian state without a consensual agreement from the Palestinians? I mean, I see Gaza. In Gaza, there wasn't a consensual deal here from the Palestinians. Is that also a possibility in this deal, that there could be a forced Palestinian state like there was a forced Gaza? Because I didn't see that the Palestinians agreed on a border. A border was given to them and said, okay, you have sovereignty now, whether you like it or not. Is that what, maybe that would shed some light for us?
That's exactly where it's going. And the Trump administration is saying that these lines are temporary, and if the Palestinians, so-called Palestinians, the Arabs, won't be willing to take the deal, so we could go back or even get sovereignty on more of the land. But as we know, that never happened, and it's hard to believe. But we know the Oslo peace process that was going on, and there were areas A, B, and C. And these days, we're not allowed to drive through area A. No one's allowed to. If we drive through there, we would get arrested. Area B, we're not allowed to build on. Even though it's right next to the community, we're not allowed to build. Area C is the only area that we are so-called allowed to build on part of it after getting permission and zoning from the Trump administration, not only from our prime minister and from our head of the army, but also from the Trump administration. But even part of the Area C is being taken out and is outside of a big part is outside of the sovereignty maps. But my point was Area A, which I wanted to talk about and say that the PLO and Abu Mazen said that the Oslo peace process and the peace deal are down the drain, and they're not interested in not going to keep whatever was written down there. But the Israelis have no plan and will never ever get permission from anyone else in the world to plan or build on Area A, even though it was temporary, even though the Palestinians say we're not going to keep the Oslo agreement. Area A was given away forever. So thank God we'll be able to capture it again. But in the near future, Area A is down the drain. We're not able. Part of the Holy Land was already given away. And the same thing is going to happen with all the areas that are outside of the map of sovereignty. All areas, as Jonathan said, there's going to be a freeze for at least 4 years, and I have heard already for 5 years, whatever's outside of the sovereignty maps. And I'll tell you, you don't need to guess. After 5 years, it will be just like Area A. There will be no zoning in areas outside of the sovereignty map. There will be nothing given back. There won't be sovereignty on more areas. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But right now, it seems that's what it looks like, and that's where it's going. And that's why the Trump administration isn't willing to allow us to add more land into the sovereignty maps, because if they add more land, so we'll be able to build. And they're not. And that's the way it seems. It's really hard to say, because we really respect and appreciate President Trump and everyone around him. But it seems like Kushner and our president are cutting down on us. As I said, we're not even talking about 30% of Judea and Samaria. We're down to 25%, and it's really ridiculous. It's killing us. It's killing the communities. We're an enclave. We're not even going to be inside. We're not going to have roads. No one even knows how we're going to be able to get back. But to get to the cities, 70-80% of the people here work outside of the community. There's going to be no way for them to get to work. It might take 3 times the amount of time. They might need to go through the Jordan Valley all around to get to Tel Aviv, which would be a crazy loop all the way down almost to Jordan and then back to Jerusalem. The same story. From an hour away, it'll be around an hour and a half or 2 hours. And the map's just going to crack down on us and kill the community. That's where it's going.
So explain that a little bit, because like if you're going to say, because I know you guys visit the holy sites, you're going to Shiloh, or you're going to Jerusalem, or you're going to Hebron. What will you have to do to get to Hebron from Har Bracha?
That's a great question. We'll need to go around 3 roads. Instead of going on Route 60, we're going to need to go all the way down to the Jordan Valley, come back somehow back to Jerusalem, then from Jerusalem.
One second.
Go ahead.
Before you get to that stage, just to get out of our community, which is going to be encircled by a Palestinian state, we're going to need armored vehicles. We're going to need tanks. I don't know what we're going to need just to get out of our community and onto the road that Chaim is talking about. You feel like that
Yonatan, what you're saying is you feel like that the Palestinians are going to be really empowered, encouraged by this, because now they're going to be surrounding the Jewish community of Har Bracha. Let's just pick Har Bracha, but there's like 15 or 16 different communities, and you're going to have we had a deal like this in the 1930s, right? I mean, in the beginning, when they started creating the ghettos were enemies outside of a Jerusalem compound. So basically, we're going to have a Jerusalem. I'm not being, wild in my thought here, but you're going to have to say that the outside of your fences, or even if you have a fence, some of you, there's no fences in some of the places, but you're going to have a line here.
You don't have to go back to 1930. We just saw what happened in Gush, where communities like Netzarim were also in these so-called enclaves surrounded by the Palestinians, and unfortunately, there were a lot of Jews who lost their lives, and they had to be escorted out of their community to get into Little Israel with armored vehicles. And, there were rockets being shot at them all the time at their school buses and you name it. So we're looking basically, like Chaim said, we're looking basically at the same type of situation. If, God forbid, this deal goes through. Now, of course, we support President Trump. We think he's a amount of good for the state of
Jonathan?
Israel? Yes.
The more you move your hands, the worse the internet goes. So the less.
Okay, sorry about that. You know, Jews speak.
Oh, it's a big secret.
Yeah, you're like a Baptist preacher. You got to use your hands and throw it.
The less you move, the more clear it is, because they use the same background and they don't change it. The video catches on.
Okay. Now I lost my train of thought. In any case, what I was saying that the situation. President Trump, thank you for everything you've done for us up until now, the embassy and recognizing Jerusalem as the capital and the Golan Heights. But we cannot accept a situation where our lives and the lives of millions of Jews and the existence of the state of Israel is in danger. It's just, it's unacceptable.
Amen. Amen. So we have to, this is I think for us as Bible believers, we have to say this is a move of God. And we believe that. I mean, as unpopular as it is now to believe in God and to believe in the Bible, there are few of us that are still out here that believe that this is a war against God's name. This is a war against the sanctity of God's name, and his name is wrapped up. We even say in the Christian community, the God of Israel or the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We use those terms that the Bible uses. And so what is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? A God that made a promise to three people, and that you guys are actually walking out this covenant, this place. And it's not a radical thing. People are labeling you two, as the terrorists. Or the, you're the settlers. You're the ones that are causing. You're the obstacle to peace. Hayuvel's even been in that category, the obstacle to peace. So
we're not the obstacle to peace. We are the solution to peace.
Yeah, and you're not like we said before. You're not. Not one person in Harbor is looking to kill Arabs. Nobody that I've ever met. They're all wanting peace, and I think that that's a misconception that the media is trying to put out there, that you guys and your children, and how many grandchildren do you have now, Jonathan?
And plus or something.
Yeah, you're. I mean, I'm seeing it all over Facebook. You're just a family person, and Chaim, your children are beautiful children. You're raising your children, your small children, and your small grandchildren on this mountain, and it's and you want a peaceable place. And what you're describing here is a potential, not I say highly likely, that we're going to see. Unfortunately, Chaim, you're in a building where Itamar Ben-Gal was. You is a dear friend of yours, very dear friend of both of you guys, and he was murdered just a year and a half ago or whatever. And this is what we can expect: more murders of Jewish people that are just trying to live out. What a great man Itamar was, because he was a teacher. He taught junior high school students, and they loved him. They were endeared to him, and yet he's at a bus stop, and a terrorist, a murderer, just stabs him, and so this is even more of a setup for the same. And so we're looking for a president like Trump, because no other president really is as strong as Trump. I think we would all agree. He's the strongest president we've seen probably in the history, to be able to do what's right, to do the right thing. I use a story, and I just want to just use this in here, but Truman, who was also kind of a rough character. President Truman was a rough guy. The buck stops here. He was very, very strong. And but he made a decision that actually put his legacy forever in concrete, and it's a good legacy today. It's a great legacy. He voted for, under the worst of circumstances. He had a lot of pressure. There were people in his White House and all around him that said, don't vote for a Jewish state. And he did it anyway. And so what I hear you saying is that you're concerned for the legacy, because 20 years from now, if President Trump decides to create a terrorist state, I think we'd have 100% agreement that the state, the Arab state that would be created, would be a terrorist state. Who's going to lead it? Hamas, Fatah, even, who still has in its charter to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Why are we dealing with these guys? So Hezbollah, the Muslim Brotherhood, all these guys they're haters. ISIS, they hate you. They hate you just because you're Jew. Just because you're Jewish.
Western society. They hate Western civilization also. They hate any normal, peace-loving, normal person. You know, like you said, Tommy, we teach our children to love all people. All humans are created in the image of God. And like you said, God forbid, none of our children or none of the residents here in Harbor Hall or anywhere in Judea area that I know of would kill an Arab, you know, if for no reason whatsoever. But unfortunately,
we know that. I can bear witness of this, because as an eyewitness, I have not seen an Arab community with a fence around their community. None of them. And we know why. Because they don't have a fear of being killed. They don't have a fear of being murdered. But the Jewish communities, there's a risk here, and so you have to build fences because of this neighborhood that's there. It's got to stop. It's got to stop.
Like President Trump 2 years ago, when he was talking about gangs and the immigrants, and he called them dangerous hombres or something like to that effect. We also have our dangerous hombres here within the land. We don't have any problem with good Arabs, decent Arabs who want to earn a decent living and want to, educate their children properly. We have no problem with living here in the land of Israel. As I said before, if they accept if they're normal people, they accept the 7 Noahide commandments and our sovereignty over the land. Fine, that's great. But the bad ones, we have to get rid of. We have to get rid of the bad ones, because they're the ones who are causing problems even for the good Arabs.
Right. Yeah, it's a situation, and I firmly believe that when Christians get on board, like we need to be, in support of God's word, then we can stop this evil process from happening. And I think we have an opportunity, and it needs to be talked about in our churches, or in our congregations. It needs to be talked about. It's not something that we cannot deal with. And I know everything's trying to divert us from divert our attention in other places, but this is a very serious matter. And what is God saying to the whole world right now, and really indicating to us what you guys are saying? This is the plan for peace, shalom. This is God's plan for that, and let's try it. Let's try it. 53 years, going on 54 years. We had a miracle war, right? To get where you are today, there was a miracle that every Christian, every time I go somewhere and I say, raise your hand if you believe this was a miracle. 6 days, in 6 days, we gained all of Judea and Samaria and Jerusalem. And so why 54 years later, or 53 years later, why are we still fighting the war? It doesn't make any sense, except that Christians just clap their hands and sit down and do nothing. And the Jews are out there on the front. You guys are on the front lines. So
well, I'm sure the evangelical Christians who do love and support Israel are praying for us. But at this moment, at this critical moment, prayers are great, but we need action. We need action. Like God told Moses at one point, he said, just don't pray to me. Go, take the Jewish nation into the land of Israel already. Just act. So that's what we're calling for right now. It's a critical period. We only have about a month to go until Prime Minister Netanyahu has decided that he's going to push the deal of the century through the government and through the Knesset. And so it's really a very, very critical time. And we're calling on all supporters and all lovers of Israel and of good in this world to do whatever you can to put pressure on your representatives, on your senators, on your congressmen, on your councilmen, whoever it is, your rabbis, your pastors, your preachers, whoever it is, to get the word out that the land of Israel is, God forbid, about to be cut into pieces, which would be a terrible desecration of God's holy name.
We're going to be left with crumbs.
Go ahead, Chaim.
I'm saying we're going to be left with crumbs. It's real. It's not even pieces. I saw the maps. They're terrible. There are a lot of crumbs and a lot of Palestinian state in red. That's the map. I just wanted to say one other thing. The summer by us started less than 2 months ago, and we've already had more than a dozen fires started coming up the mountain. Also next to you guys, coming up towards you guys, Hayovel, and also all around from north and from west and from east. And some of them are day after day and the same day with firefighters all over. We're at war already. We don't need to be put into crumbs. We don't need to be in an enclave without any option to get out of there. No roads, no way to get to our families outside of here or to work. We have enough trouble. All we're saying is, help us at least leave the land the way it is, but don't make it worse. The plan.
They claim to love the land of Israel, and meanwhile they're burning it down. How do you explain that?
Yeah, the Palestinians. Yeah,
they love the land of Israel. They want it to be their state. Why are you burning down all the trees? Why are you burning?
We have right here a forest on Mt Gerizim that in the last 5 years has totally disappeared. They just burnt it down so many times. There's nothing left. Nothing.
Yeah, it's obvious who loves the land, right? And I think the thing that we're trying to say too here, we know that President Trump is in a battle. He's in a political battle for his, for his life, for the next election. And I think that we have to send a strong message that this is from the evangelical community, that this is important to us, and that could we, in good conscience, for those of us that are strongly supportive of the entire promise that the God of all creation, the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, can we in good conscience, because, there's a choice here. And I'm not saying that any of us conservatives would ever vote for the other side or the opposition, but there's a place here where, that we may have to say, I can't do this because I can't vote at all because I can't line up against God's word. And this is a critical deal. And I know that I'm going to have, conservatives like throwing, Trump supporters, but we've got to help the president not make this mistake. We have to make a voice loud and clear because we love him, because we care about this election, because we don't want to see an anti-Israel president in the office. We want him to see.
I want to say something important, Tommy. If God forbid Biden will become president, he's going to take this plan in the Palestinian state that Trump designed and right away say this is a Palestinian state. There'll be nothing to talk about. As I said, the temporary will right away become permanent. And we don't know what's going to happen in less than a year. We really don't know. We really hope that Trump will be able to continue. But if he doesn't, God forbid, we will be in a lot of bigger trouble because of the plan that Trump and the Republicans pushed ahead.
Let's keep this conversation going, and we want to keep everybody here as they're watching this. This is an important discussion here from the heart of the matter. The heart of the issue. We're discussing from the real core, people that are really living this out, and even from us as Christians who are actually walking this place from the nations, coming here to support Israel in a good way. And I just want to say how much I appreciate you guys and your families and all of the families. How many families in Har Bracha right now?
450.
450 families in Har Bracha. This is a
Over
large
3,000 people.
that it needs to be a big city. This should be a major city on overlooking, and from where you stand, you can go out in your yard and look at the whole coastline of Israel.
Exactly.
And this does not need to be a Palestinian
and
state.
I put it up on my Facebook. I did it this morning. I went out to
I met you there.
your encampment, and Chaim was there, and I took a video, and you see the entire coastline from Hadera in the north, all the way down to Ashkelon and Ashdod in the south. And right in the middle is the greater Tel Aviv area with millions of Jews living there. And you can see it like it's on the palm of your hand from Har Bracha. God forbid if there was ever a PLO, Hamas, ISIS terrorist state here, they could just shoot down planes taking off or landing in Ben Gurion Airport and just lob in missiles into the most densely populated area of the state of Israel. God forbid.
We see the rockets from Gaza being shot to the Tel Aviv area, and we see the Iron Dome sometimes hitting the rockets. We see it from here. So we see all the way, as Jonathan said, from Gaza Strip, all the way up north till Hadera and way past. We see the Mount Hermon. Just Mt Gerizim is blocking it, but from this area we also see the Hermon. So we see the whole country. Just think about it. If there would become an ISIS state here, or even next door, or 100 meters away outside of the map, think about it. Our Hamas state, not even ISIS or the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, take a look at the Hamas Charter. The Hamas Charter is horrific. Every article in the charter is against the Zionist regime, and so this is, no, we as lovers of Israel, we're standing with Israel, and we have to stand firmly. And it has to be a serious moment, a serious thing for us. There's the map right there.
This is the map of they call it the Vision for Peace conceptual map, a future state of Palestine.
Hey, I'll put it up here on the screen here right now.
Okay, but I wanted to point out, Tommy, so go back. Oh, you can still see me? Okay, here, this entire darkened area is the future Palestinian state. And here, right about here, is Tel Aviv and Netanya and a lot of big cities here where millions of Jews are living, and the distance from the Palestinian state to these major cities and to the major number 6 highway that runs south and north throughout the country is 9 miles or 9 kilometers, I even think. It's just so narrow that, we're talking about here, we're in Har Bracha, we're more in the center. But, the Jews living here are going to be even in greater danger. When the Arabs now send missiles from the Gaza Strip, so they can reach Beersheba, they can reach all of the cities here. And they can also reach further, but they haven't been that stupid to really shoot at Tel Aviv yet. But here they're going to be so much closer. It's mind-boggling that anybody, especially our prime minister, who's probably one of the greatest prime ministers that Israel has ever seen, Mr. Bibi Benjamin Netanyahu, could even think of the establishment of a Palestinian state in the heart of the land of Israel. He's always talking about security, security, security. There's no question in our minds that exactly what happened in Gush Katif in Gaza, where the Hamas took over and automatically sent thousands of missiles into Israel, killing innocent Jews, they're going to do the same exact thing here in the Palestinian state, God forbid.
Yeah, and you are, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, you're part of the Likud party. There's a big, huge voting block of the Likud party in Judea and Samaria. It's huge. I heard even the second largest voting block of the Likud is in, and this is the Prime Minister Netanyahu's party.
Right.
This is, we have two men that are going to be devastated by a wrong decision here, and that's Netanyahu and the president.
Mostly because of the
done
president.
great things for Israel. Two great men who have done great things for Israel, but unfortunately, in the end of their careers, unfortunately, like Menachem Begin also, who was a tremendous leader, but in the end of his years, he gave in, he gave up the Sinai. He is the one who actually set up a Palestinian state by giving them, letting them have police officers and whatnot.
Ariel Sharon.
Unfortunately, God forbid, that could happen to Prime Minister Netanyahu and also to President Trump, that they will go down in history as the ones who brought terror and death and murder and blood of Jews, God forbid, just flowing in the streets of Israel. We've seen it before. We saw all of the buses. We saw all of the terrorist suicide killers putting bombs on themselves and going into buses and just murdering and maiming innocent Jews, just wanting to get to their work or go home or go out for a pizza or whatever it was. And they just blew them up into pieces, into smithereens. Yeah. And that's God forbid, that's exactly what's going to happen.
And you and I together bore witness of a suicide bomber together. That's another story.
That's for another time.
Yeah, that's for another time. But we've seen it. You and I together have been eyewitnesses to that deal. That young boy that we both saw was going to murder, no telling, God forbid, how many Jews were going to die.
And we have no doubt on our minds that is exactly what's going to take place within that 70% of Judea and Samaria that is going to be the future Palestinian state. It's going to be overtaken by Hamas. It's going to be overtaken by ISIS. It's going to be overtaken by terrorists who their only goal is to kill Jews and to destroy the state of Israel.
Absolutely. And anybody, I'd love to hear from any Christian that would disagree with that. And if you can't disagree with that, then it's time to move in this direction, supporting the Jewish community, talking to your politician, giving him phone call. Be bold. This is something serious. This is happening as if it is happening to us. We're saying, what does the psalmist say? And was it 126? God has done great things for you guys. And then you're reminded that God has done great things for us. And we have to be that reminder to you guys what God is doing. And it has to be great things. And we don't need to be, God forbid, that God sees us as being against what he is actually trying to do, what he is doing. Not what he's trying to do, what he is doing.
And at this critical time, now is not the time to be silent. Because if you're silent, it's just as bad as if you were, on the other side, on the Arab side. Silence is the worst thing that you could possibly do in this critical time.
Always indifference. If it wasn't for indifference, as we've heard from the Jewish people, if it wasn't for indifference, there would not have been a Holocaust. If it wasn't for indifference, this issue would already be settled, 53 years ago. So we need, it's time for the Christian community to come together, to start walking out our faith, stop, walk out of the country club, walk out of the places that, where you're at. And I'm saying to my Jewish friends as well, I mean, I'm sure you would say it the same, that, we got this deal, but America is falling apart. We need to get on with the plan of God and get right with God and see prosperity come back to the nations that are with God in this process. And we're going to see it happen. I believe the coronavirus, forgive me for saying this, but you could say it 100 years ago and everybody would be clapping their hands. But right now we have such an anti-God atmosphere but let's go in this direction and see God deal with these plagues, deal with these division and divisiveness that's happening, and let's get on with the business of making God's name and sanctifying God's name in the world. And that's for the nations to also do, not just the Jews in Israel, but for the nations to be involved in this. And so I want to say thank you. And I know, let's keep this conversation going. Maybe we can come back next week with an update where you're at and what's happening. What's the news for today? How can Christians pray? You're going to have a place where we're going to have a house of prayer for all nations. We got to learn how to pray for Israel. It's got to be for us, even for the nations, that we not forget Jerusalem, not forget what God has given to the Jewish people, to the whole world as a gift, and we need to be pressing into that. So I would also just say too.
One thing, we have faith in God. We have complete faith in God that the final redemption will come. The question is, will it come in a very pleasant way, or will it come with a lot of problems, a lot of trials and tribulations, like coronavirus, like the demonstrations that are going on throughout the cities in America, locust plague, different types of things going on in the world. And like, I'm not a prophet, and I'm not the son of a prophet, but I do come from a nation of prophets. And I think if you just open up your eyes and see what's going on, God has given us a wake-up call that He wants His children to return to the land of Israel, live in the land of Israel, build the land of Israel, and let's do it in the best possible way. If we listen to the word of God and we fulfill His commandments, and like I said, the number one commandment is building the land of Israel, then I have a feeling that things will be a lot better.
Amen. Amen. You broke up, but I think we heard the word, the message there. Chaim, you got any last parting words here for us?
Yeah, I just want to say that everyone's talking about a month, but there's a lot less left, because right now and tomorrow and the day after, they're still working on the maps, and it's still doable to change the lines, to add as much land as we can, way over 30%, and give the land back to the Jewish people, who the land is really we got the land from God. And it's not a question of a month. Don't wait for another month in order to talk to your congressman or whoever it will be, but rather today, right now, pick up the phone and talk to them, because in a month it'll be too late. The maps will be closed. There'll be nothing to do. There'll be a deal or there won't be a deal, but there'll be no changes that will be doable. And therefore, now is the time to do as much as you can for the people of Israel and for the whole world.
Yeah, we stand with you, and we've got to come together. We've got to be one accord on this issue, and we're there.
We want to say thank you, Tommy, for giving us the opportunity to have our voices heard, because unfortunately the leftist media doesn't really give us a chance to express our true feelings and what's really going on here in the Holy Land. So we want to thank you and Hayobel for all you do, and for all of the volunteers, thousands of volunteers that you bring here to Israel, to Har Bracha, every year in and year out for the last 15 years. And from all over the world, Australia, China, you could probably name all of the nations that these volunteers come from. They pay out of their own pockets. They don't get any money, and they work day and night in the vineyards picking the grapes. And it's such a blessing. And we really want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we bless you that God will give you the strength to continue on in your tremendous work for Am Yisrael, for the Jewish nation, and for the land of Israel. And the gospel.
Yeah, we always felt like thank you for that, but we always felt like, and I always tell you this, both of you guys, that you guys think that you can have all, have God all to yourself, and we appreciate that you're allowing us to have a piece of the God and sanctifying His name by being the foreigners that Isaiah spoke about to come and tend the bonds in Israel.
We don't think God is only for us. We know that God is the God of the entire world. He's chosen the nation of Israel to be the light unto the nations, to teach the nations how to live a prosperous, blessed, happy life according to the word of God. And that's what we're trying to do our best here. And we all want to support we get and get out there and get the word out. Get the word out. Speak to your, like we said, like I said, speak to representatives. Today, go and do it. I know this, the coronavirus and the demonstration, lives matter no matter what, but nevertheless, we're talking about the Holy Land of Israel. We're talking about the nation of Israel. Like you say, Tommy, the
right. Chaim, you're the city manager. Go fix his internet before the next broadcast. All right. He said we got most of what he said, but you got to do something about that. It's all on you because you're the mayor, right?
With the new maps, there's no way to send the internet through because we're an enclave.
Oh no.
No, we'll have Palestinian internet, and that'll be only if we're lucky.
Oh no. And then that could be a lot of problems. But yeah, fix his internet before we talk next week. All right.
Okay, we'll see you next week, Tommy.
Yeah, you guys have a good Shabbat and Shabbat Shalom. What a blessing. Please, I want to tell the people that are listening to this, pass this on. This is information straight from the heart of Samaria, straight from the heart. This whole deal. You're not going to hear this on
family.
How many calls from CNN have you guys gotten to state or Fox News or anybody talking to you guys about what's happening here?
Not yet, but I'm sure they'll be covered.
Yeah, well, we got to. Somebody's got to hear your voice, and you're good people, and you're God. You're doing God's work, and I'm really blessed to know both of you and all of the families there. So it's we're going to get to work. So we'll continue this discussion. Hopefully, let's get together. Let's talk about it after next week, first of the week, and let's just see where we're at. And when we want to come up here and make these live updates, but it's going to be important for the people that are listening here to get this message out and understand the critical issues here. This is maybe one of the most important videos I think that's on that's being made today because we need to be engaged.
And
Amen.
It doesn't take that much. All you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, support the bill. Go to your phone right now, pick up the phone, call your congressman, call your councilman, call whoever you can, and say, what is going on? Why is President Trump ready and willing to give the Arabs, who hate his guts and hate the guts of America,
right,
a state of their own in the heart of the land of Israel, 70% of Judea and Samaria?
They're burning the American flag. They're making an effigy out of President Trump. They absolutely hate him. We need to help President Trump, make a good decision here. We want to see him with a good legacy. Right. Everybody agree with that? Yes.
Yep.
He needs to have a good legacy. Okay, we'll wrap it up here, and appreciate you guys. Lila Tov up there, or get some yeah. So we'll be in touch and appreciate. Keep fighting the fight. We're behind you 100%.
Bye.
You got it? I am. You hear me?
We're live, Jonathan. You want to say anything?
We're live right now?
Yeah.
We're still on. Great. What do I want to say? I want to say, first of all, when this coronavirus is over,
I wanted to say something. I wanted to say
everybody come to visit us here in Harbor.
And I wanted to tell everyone that whoever can't pick up their phone to call their congressman should send a WhatsApp, should send them a Facebook, should a Facebook message on Messenger, should send them a SMS, whatever they can to help us out.
I agree 100%.
But Tommy's gone, so Jonathan, you could go ahead. Yeah, we're still on.
Come
We're
on,
still
no, I
on.
think he cut us off.
I'm gonna leave.
Okay.
Shalom from Har Bracha.
Shalom to everybody. Peace. You're still on. Stop the camera. Hi, you're still on.